Make Mine Multiverse. The Loki Season 1 finale paid off big time, finally revealing what we've been wondering about the entire season, who the real villain actually is, and it confirms what we hoped. This show is getting a second season. Directed by Kate Herron, Episode 6, For All Time Always, forces our variant Lokis to make a tough decision after lifting the veil on who's been behind the TVA all along, plus an ending that will have major repercussions on the MCU Phase 4 going forward. But before we dive in, I have to warn you, we are about to spoil everything that just went down in the Loki finale, so if you haven't seen it yet or want to draw your own conclusions, now would be the perfect time to fire up that temp pad and pop through a quick portal while we break this down. Okay, now that we're past the spoiler warning, let's get to the major reveals they've been building up to all season. First of all, there will be a Loki Season 2. This is confirmed by the mid-credits scene. See? It says so right there. We've got some theories on what Loki Season 2 could be about, and we'll get to those in just a second, but first, let's talk about the real villain living in that creepy castle at the end of time. It was Kang the Conqueror all along.
Don't tell me I'm a disappointment.
We spent most of Loki's first season speculating that the real villain was either Kang or another variant Loki, but the one possibility we didn't see coming, a variant Kang.
You didn't see that coming?
Yeah, Pietro, I just said so. Anyway, let's just recap this and show how we wound up here. Picking up from Episode 5, Loki and Sylvie make it to the Citadel at the end of time, ready to find whoever's really behind the TVA and give that person the business, which brings us to the variant Kang situation we got going here. Actor Jonathan Majors was confirmed as Kang the Conqueror for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which isn't coming out until 2023, and though his appearance here is clearly a setup for that, it's also a whole lot more, plus this version of Kang and the Quantumania version of Kang are not the same Kangs. This version shares a lot of what we know about Kang from the pages of Marvel Comics. He never fully identifies himself, but this is a variant of Kang the Conqueror. Even that animated psycho Miss Minutes only refers to him as He Who Remains, and he's from the 31st century, and he's able to easily jump through time so Loki and Sylvie can't stab him to death, which they absolutely attempt to do numerous times. He explains that one of his variants figured out that alternate universes were stacked along with his own, which is significant, so we'll actually break that down in a second. But anyway, this Kang says he knows how every scenario will play out because he has literally seen it all.
Every step you took to get here, Lamentus the Void, I paved the road. You just walked down it.
So our two variant Lokis who fought so hard to reach him, it's because he wanted them there. And why? Well, because he may be sneaky in his methods, but he's not evil. He's been overseeing the work the TVA does to keep multiversal war from breaking out, and he's been doing it for a long time, and now he's just tired. See, just as there are a bunch of variant Lokis running around, there are also variant versions of Kang, and for a time they worked together to share their knowledge in multiversal science until other variants had a different idea.
Not every version of me was so pure of heart.
For some of the variants, the multiverse just meant new lands to conquer, which turned the peace between realities into chaos and multiversal war. This variant of Kang was able to weaponize Alioth, who we met last episode, and used it to end the multiversal war, leaving only the sacred timeline. He then created the TVA to help manage and prune the other timelines and keep the chaos at bay. One of those variants will be the Kang we meet in Quantumania. We know this for sure because Sylvie kills this one. Before this happens though, he suggests Loki and Sylvie continue to run the Time Variance Authority in his place, or they kill him, destroy the TVA, and multiversal chaos and war break out. Either way, he leaves the choice up to them. Loki seems to want to run the TVA for noble reasons, but it doesn't matter. He and Sylvie have a knife fight, and then they kiss, but then she betrays him and kicks him through a time door and kills the variant Kang, which he's just surprisingly chill about. Anyway, the timeline goes completely bonkers. Loki is back at the TVA, except nobody knows who he is, and would you look at that, instead of the Timekeeper statues, that there is Kang the Conqueror.
See you soon.
So like I said, Loki Season 2 was confirmed in the post-credits scene, and we're left on that pretty major cliffhanger, but it's pretty clear where Loki Season 2's story would pick up. Loki is stuck back at the beginning in the custody of a variant TVA where nobody knows him. Mobius and B-15 take him into custody, and Kang the Conqueror is the guy running things here, not the Timekeepers. This is obviously a variant timeline. The Sacred Timeline splintered off wildly after Sylvie killed that Kang variant, and when she kicked Loki through the time door, she kicked him to one of those variant realities. The Mobius we've known for 6 episodes is still back on what used to be the Sacred Timeline, getting hosed by Ravonna Renslayer. That version of him and B-15 are still committed to burning down the TVA, just like he said, but their variants are totally in the dark, just as they were when our variant Loki first met them. So part of Loki's task in breaking out of his Kang-dominated variant timeline will be in waking Mobius and B-15 up to the truth about their existence. I mean, again, he sort of did it to them once. Back to Ravonna. She says she's off to find some free will, which really means she's headed off to do what Sylvie just succeeded in doing. Her motivation seems to be the same it's been all season. She wants to be the one in control of the TVA. The biggest question mark seems to be Sylvie. She winds up in the Citadel at the end of time, but she has the time-jumping tech she took off the variant Kang she just killed, so she's definitely not stuck there. Causing chaos is part of what Lokis are all about, and she has played that part perfectly, totally unleashing the multiverse from the order the variant Kang had imposed on it. What's unclear is what she will do and where and when she'll go next. But that all kind of sets the stage for Loki Season 2. Loki's stuck in a variant timeline, Mobius and B-15 are trying to burn down what's left of the TVA, Ravonna wants to usurp what she doesn't yet realize is Kang's time empire, something that actually happens in the comics, and Sylvie just became the most powerful variant Loki, and at the same time, infinite variants of Kang the Conqueror are about to be unleashed on the entire multiverse. And speaking of the multiverse, another thing the episode does is give us the clearest explanation of how it really works and how the MCU is folded into it. The episode opens on some cool cosmic visuals of the multiverse, or at least what looks like two universes sitting side by side. The variant Kang explains that universes are stacked on top of each other, and the other variant Kangs gain their power by learning how to travel between the universes. Anyway, the other big issue to consider is how this will affect other MCU content coming out between Loki Seasons 1 and 2. A truly evil Kang the Conqueror definitely sounds like a Thanos great villain a future team of Avengers will eventually need to team up to stop. But also, you have the million diverging timelines created by this episode, which the TVA seems powerless to stop. When Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings drops in September, will it matter what timeline it takes place on? Same goes for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and for Spider-Man No Way Home. So far, the MCU Phase 4 seems to have two major storylines brewing in the background. One, Contessa Val is assembling a new team that now includes a Super Soldier and a Black Widow. Spoilers for Black Widow if you haven't seen it. Second, and more importantly, the multiverse is going haywire, and that's going to create major ripples throughout the MCU as we go forward.
Without the me, without the TVA, everything burned.
And of course, it's time for the old Easter egg hunt, and it's probably not surprising that there were a bunch of Kang-related callouts. Kang the Conqueror is dead, all hail Kang the Conqueror. This version of Kang wasn't an evil one, he was affable and goofy and seemed to enjoy an apple like most of us do, but he's just the setup for the evil Kang, or Kangs that we know from the comics. The statue Loki sees in the end shot definitely sports the armor and gear that he uses in the comics as well. Miss Minutes calls the variant Kang He Who Remains, which is another Marvel Comics reference. He Who Remains was also a super old being posted up in a castle at the end of time, but he definitely was not Kang. So, the Citadel at the end of time. The gold lines throughout the castle seem to be influenced by the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is mended with melted gold, drawing attention to the cracks rather than trying to hide them, which is an interesting juxtaposition with the fact that we now essentially see time and space shattered into countless pieces, with nobody but Kevin Feige and the team at Marvel Studios to stitch it together with gold. Inside the Citadel, we see statues of the Timekeepers, including a smashed fourth statue. We're guessing that the Timekeepers may have existed at one point before becoming those poor Chuck E. Cheese robots that get their heads cut off. But if we're going off the comics, the fourth statue could have been a fourth Timekeeper that He Who Remains banished to ancient Egypt. When Miss Minutes offers Sylvie and Loki scenarios that were totally too good to be true, she calls out the Battle of New York from the first Avengers film and offers to let Loki kill Thanos, which... yeah, that makes sense. And finally, maybe it's the Ginchi purple coat, but Kang does a spot-on condescending Wonka impression. Oh, you haven't seen Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory? But anyway, what do you think of the Loki finale and the intro of Kang the Conqueror, and what do you think will go down in Loki Season 2? Is the MCU headed for multiverse chaos? Kinda seems that way. Let's hear your theories down in the comments below. Anyway, thank you for watching this episode of Cannon Fodder. For more Marvel, here's the superhero team we think Contessa Val is building after Black Widow, and don't forget to follow and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch. We'll see you next time, true believers.